Best Music Compilation.
It's time for the final word in sports all across the state. You're listening to Sports Talk with your hosts, Bill Kornblut, Will Pelagic, and the Professor Tom Hayes. You've been waiting all day, so join the show now by calling 800-956-7266.
So make sure that our guys get the credit that they deserve for a great year. It did not end the way that we wanted it to end. It was tough getting through that game tonight, getting hit the way that we got hit. But the guys in our dugout did some really good things this year.
This game is about you take a punch, you throw a punch, take a punch and throw a punch. And that's a really good team that was in the other dugout today. I think the media talked about it was probably the best number 4 seed in the country, and I would agree with that. They ended up with 39 wins. They had a 3.2 team ERA. That was a tough bunch in that group. And they could really swing the bat too. We knew it was going to be a battle today. We knew it was going to be a battle. We wanted to try to get it done in game 1, and they obviously didn't want to let us do that. So just thought it was a solid baseball game with 2 real high-quality teams.
And a pleasant good evening to you and yours, and welcome into Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network on this Monday, the 4th day of June, 2018. From our Columbia studios, I'm Will Pelagic. Professor Tom Hayes has the afternoon off, and our Phil Kornblut is in Greenville, North Carolina, where the South Carolina Gamecocks have advanced to the Super Regional Round of the NCAA baseball tournament for the 13th time, in school history. Both Coastal Carolina and Clemson are done. The post-mortem on both of their seasons still to come, but we'll go right out to Corn, where South Carolina will see a familiar opponent next week, and they'll do it because they had a perfect weekend north of the North Carolina-South Carolina border.
Yeah, indeed they did. Look, indeed they did. As they go 3-0 in this regional in Greenville, North Carolina, and the rain delays and all that did not affect the Gamecocks. They came out and played terrific baseball today. They win it over UNCW 8-4, 8-15-0 for the Gamecocks. But listen to this. They left 18 runners on base. So they kept the offensive pressure on the Seahawks from the get-go. A few times they weren't able to capitalize. Obviously, you leave 18, you're missing some opportunities. But plenty of times they did capitalize in the pitching, starting with the freshman, Carmen Majinski. Another good outing for him. You know, he had some rough moments during the season, but he had a good outing in the SEC tournament. He had a good outing today to get the Gamecocks into the middle part of the game. And then he let the bullpen take over from there. And again, the bullpen was excellent. Eddie Demurius came in, and then Sawyer Bridges finished up. Demurius did give up 1 earned run. That means for the 3-game regional, the Gamecock bullpen allowed 1 earned run, and that was this afternoon. They were lights out throughout this event. And so the Gamecocks move on. I mean, you just never know in baseball. We talk about it all the time. I mean, it's just such a cliche, but there's no way to predict what's going to happen in a baseball game. Who would have thought sitting here at this time on Monday night that we'd be talking about South Carolina moving on and Clemson and Coastal Carolina, 2 teams hosting regionals, staying home? It just proves to you that hosting a regional is not an automatic recipe for success. You still have to play good baseball in all the phases. And the Gamecocks did that. They played good defense the entire weekend. Like I said, the pitching was sound, and the offense was good enough and very good today. So they move on to play Arkansas. We'll find out later tonight when that series will start. It could start Friday. It could start Saturday. You look at the bracket, and most of that bracket is set up for a Saturday start. But Ray Tanner, who you'll hear from tonight, told me after the game that they have a 10 o'clock conference call. And just because USC played today does not mean it's automatic that they'll play on Saturday. They'll get that all figured out. But you got to tip your hat to Mark Kingston and his guys. This team was left for dead after losing to Presbyterian on a dreary Tuesday night in Columbia. I remember that well. They were 20-17, and people were wondering just what in the heck was going on with Gamecock baseball. And that team banded together, had the best record in the SEC in the second half, and, went to the SEC tournament. Even though they went 1-2, they were competitive. And then they came here and carried the flag of the SEC quite well. And, Will, it's been a very good NCAA tournament for the SEC to this point.
It has 5 teams already in the Super Regionals. 3 more could possibly join them with the games that still have yet to be played or are currently in progress. If you are a Gamecock fan who left this team for dead, much like we did 7 weeks ago, and you want to gloat, especially to certain fans who might be in the upstate, 800-956-7266. We will allow you the forum to do so. On Twitter at SportsTalkSC and also on Periscope at SportsTalkSC. I have to imagine there are a lot of fans out there who, after seeing the way Clemson's weekend started, on Friday night, they said to the media that they adopted the motto, all gas and no brakes. I'm sure that made Gamecock football fans snicker. Well, the gas kind of basically ran out by the end of Sunday because with Clemson's pitching the way that they had go throughout the weekend, they just ran out of gas and ran out of arms. And the thing that I think was probably the biggest question mark going into postseason and even going into the season, how do you replace the starting pitching? I would say the answer still was never fully realized. The only guy who gave Clemson a quality start this past weekend was Brooks Crawford. Nobody else went longer than 3 1/3. And 2 guys went 2 1/3. And you had guys out there who, let's be honest, nobody but their moms and dads knew who they were from Clemson. And at times, Doug Kingsmore Stadium felt like the New Spring Chapel instead of an actual baseball stadium with rowdy fans inside of it. It was a real poor showing on Sunday evening, a 19-6 loss at the hands of Vanderbilt. Coastal Carolina loses to UConn 6-5. And here's South Carolina, who's at the end of the weekend, the last team standing in the Palmetto State. You got to give kudos to Mark Kingston. And for a guy who I don't know if we knew how well of an aptitude that this man had for really building this team and trying to get this basically collection of different kinds of people together, people from last year who, of course, were key contributors and those who had to step into bigger roles. He has built a team, Corn, and he's built one not only that believes, but I can tell you right now, despite the fact that Arkansas goes into next weekend with a lot of confidence, the last team they wanted to see come out of Greenville, North Carolina, is the team wearing garnet and black.
Well, that's probably true because when they played earlier this year at Arkansas, it was bad weather, it was cold, it was rainy, and you had 3 low-scoring games. The Gamecocks won the first game 3-2. Then they played that doubleheader on Saturday, and Arkansas pitching dominated, winning 2-0 and 3-0. I don't think you're going to see that whenever they play this super regional. The temperature, of course, is much hotter. It's conducive for the ball to fly out of the ballpark and for offense. So I would expect that you would see more offense in this series. But the Razorbacks have lost 3 home games all season. USC was the last team to beat them at home in that 3-2 win back in April. So it is a tall task. It is a tough task. It's an outstanding Arkansas team. You've got to travel halfway across the country. But this South Carolina team right now has a lot of belief and a lot of confidence, and they don't think there's anything they can't achieve. They think that they can get to Omaha, and they plan to go out to Arkansas and see if they can make that happen.
800-956-7266. Here's the menu. We're going to hear from head coach Mark Kingston and Ray Tanner from Greenville, North Carolina. Tanner, of course, will be part of the group that meets tonight to set the regional sites. They will announce those tomorrow morning on the NCAA's website at 8 a.m. Eastern. So we'll know tomorrow morning when, where, and how the Gamecocks will be playing, and we'll give you that information on our social media at SportsTalkSC and on our website, SportsTalkSC.com, tomorrow morning when it comes through. Also, we're going to hear from the two coaches whose teams had their seasons end this past weekend, Gary Gilmore of Coastal Carolina and Monty Lee of Clemson. Also, the Major League Baseball first-year player draft is tonight. Seth Beer could be one of the first Palmetto State Collegiate players off the board. He's projected as a late first-round pick. And also, we will get to a very sizable recruiting weekend for South Carolina men's basketball and football. They basically filled 2/3 of the remaining basketball slots, and also another big spot in the football ranks from a guy who had a Clemson offer. It was a banner weekend. If you wear the garnet and black, and if you are wearing orange, you are talking to yourself this morning and this afternoon and maybe this evening as well, and maybe not sleeping very well tonight, much like this particular person as well. 800-956-7266. We'll get it all going and give you some of those recruiting nuggets when we come back here on Sports Talk.
Let me get this done here. Let's see here.
Hey, Corn, we're going to throw it to you for recruiting nuggets. Then we do have a call about Gamecock baseball.
Okay. I'm sending Madison Stokes as well. I pulled him out of the press conference because he was the best player and he had the best audio. So I'm going to send you that. I'm going to send you Kingston, and I'm going to send you Tanner here in just a second. Say what?
Cool beans. You're sending it to the email?
Yeah, if that's where you'd like it.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine.
Okay, coming at you. I'm sending you the whole USC presser. It's that I've cleaned up. It's 9 minutes. It's all Kingston. We can play as much of it as we want. And what's the other one? The other one is okay, audio's on the way. Let me recap the game when we come back, first of all, before we do anything else. Let me recap the game.
All right.
Sports Talk is the sports talk show of Main Street, South Carolina. From the coast to the mountains, we cover it all.
Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network. We're brought to you by Founders Federal Credit Union. Receive double CU rewards points on lodging, travel, and dining purchases from May 15th to July 31st when you use your Founders Visa Signature or Platinum Visa credit card. Visit foundersfcu.com/Visa for full details. We'll take your phone calls, 800-956-7266. Got a couple on board ready to go, and we will do that here in just a second. Also give you some of the recruiting nuggets from the weekend. But again, more on the Gamecock baseball victory. 8-4, they beat UNC Wilmington. You know, Quan, we were talking earlier. I was like, I'm not sure about Carmen Majinski in this spot, but he came up large, and the Gamecock offense followed.
Absolutely. For those of you who weren't able to follow the game either on the radio or watching it on your computer or whatever device that you had, we'll fill you in on how things went today for South Carolina. They win it 8-4, 8-15-0 for the Gamecocks, 4-9-2 for Wilmington. The Gamecocks, again, kept the offense churning all day long with 18 runners left on base, but they had the 15 hits. They were able to put together 2-run rallies in the second, the sixth, the seventh, and the ninth innings. Hunter Taylor gave the Gamecocks a 2-0 lead in the third on a bases-loaded double. In the sixth, Madison Stokes made it 3-1 with a sacrifice fly, and L.T. Tolbert later drove in a run with a single. Now, a 2-run homer by the Seahawks kept Brown, who's out of Wando and SMC, cut the lead to 4-3 in the sixth, but Stokes got those runs right back in the seventh with a 2-run double. And Jonah Bride put it out of reach with a 2-run homer in the ninth. Freshman Carmen Majinski, as we talked about, another strong outing, leaving in the sixth after surrendering that Brown home run. Eddie Demurius replaced him. He immediately gave up back-to-back singles. This was a big part of the game. It was the Gamecocks were still kind of clinging to the lead at this point. Demurius comes in, gives up back-to-back singles. Then they put down a bunt trying to move those runners ahead. He fielded the bunt cleanly and got the lead runner at third, and I think that kind of took the steam out of Wilmington at that point. That was a very big play. He then got 2 strikeouts to end the inning, and the Gamecocks went on from there. Sawyer Bridges replaced Demurius in the bottom of the ninth with 2 on and no outs. He gave up a 1-out sacrifice fly that cut the lead to 8-4, but that was all the Seahawks could muster, and the Gamecocks get the win to improve to 36-24, and most importantly, they move on to the Super Regionals. Danny Blair was named the regional MVP. He had another hit today. This was a kid that came in playing very little, primarily a defensive replacement and pinch runner. He was hitting 186 coming into the regional. They put him in as a defensive replacement in the sixth inning of the opening game against Ohio State with the Gamecocks trailing 2-0, and he cranks a 3-run homer his first plate appearance. And then he took off from there, had several hits against East Carolina, 1 hit today. He raised his batting average to about 250, from 186 to 250 with his performance here in the regional. Carlos Cortez had 4 hits today. Madison Stokes had a couple of hits and 3 RBIs. Jonah Bride had a couple of hits and 2 RBIs. And Taylor had 2 RBIs. And again, 2 key stats that will take you a long way in any baseball tournament or regional play. Relief pitching and defense. The Gamecocks committed 1 error in 3 games, and their bullpen gave up 1 earned run in 3 games. So just a complete performance in the 3 games here for South Carolina.
Yeah, the big thing you need is you need starting pitching. You need your starters to go deep, and you need somebody who can pitch multiple times in a weekend and give you some length out of the bullpen. That's what Eddie Demurius has been. That's what Ryan Miller tried to do for Clemson. Olsen, but he was unable to at least get another opportunity to do so, as Clemson starters did not necessarily make the leads stand up. And we'll talk more about them later on. 800-956-7266. More on the Gamecocks. Jonathan in Rock Hill joins us on Sports Talk. You're up first, Jonathan. What's happening?
Good afternoon, Robert.
What's happening?
Yeah, I'm going to say Mark Kingston, like we've said time and time again, like when we lost to PC, like we probably all Gamecock Nation thought what was going on. I mean, since that second half of the season, Mark Kingston and this team has done an unbelievable job. And it's nice to get out of this regional, but there is still, I guess, a little bit more work to be done this weekend in Arkansas.
There is, Jonathan, but I think there's enough to be happy about if you're a Gamecock fan. I think you need to revel in this a little bit. And Corn, I mean, you ask me, you asked Gamecock fans 7 weeks ago if they would have been in a super regional, they would have thought you were ticketed for a mental institution. I mean, you have to appreciate where you are and appreciate where they were before you can start worrying about where they can go.
Well, simply put, it starts with the head man. And the one thing that I've learned about Mark Kingston from just watching him and listening to him throughout the season is that he is an even keel kind of guy. He does not run hot and cold emotionally. And I think that when things were going tough for South Carolina at 20-17, he had a meeting with his players and he said, hey, the time is now to get started if we're going to do anything. As he has said, they came to a fork in the road in the season, and he left it up to the players to kind of decide which way they're going to go. I mean, they had worked hard. There's nothing that they left on the table in the locker room or in the training room. I mean, they had put the work in. Injuries, of course, were a big part of their issues through the bulk of the regular season. He could hardly put the same lineup together there for the longest time. Once they started getting some pieces back, they started playing a lot better. But even more impressive now that I think about it, is that they won this series and T.J. Hopkins didn't appear in any form or fashion. And he is a big part of what they can be when he's healthy and able to play. And so if there's some way they can get him going so that he can help them out at Arkansas, that would be a bonus.
I know. We'll see if TJ can get it going for supers, but at the same time, the way that the outfield for the Gamecocks is hitting, you wonder if he could even crack the lineup. I mean, that's how good they are right now between Cortez, Blair, and Olsen. Well, more on the baseball here in a moment, but I do want to at least touch Corn on not only the big football commitment, but the fact that the Gamecocks are basically almost done with their basketball roster after a recruiting haul this weekend that they absolutely needed.
Well, it certainly looks that way with the picking up the transfer from George Washington in Jair Bolden, and then Keyshawn Bryant, the high school player out of Florida, getting him committed. I would say that they're pretty close, especially with A.J. Lawson. They've got one spot left, and A.J. Lawson is the guy that they're still recruiting as far as I know, which tells me that perhaps there is no room for Jalik Felton if they were ever going to take him into the program. If they get A.J. Lawson, as it certainly looks like they will, that would take up the 13th available roster and scholarship spot for this coming season. So they're getting very, very close. And then for football, of course, Anderson committing on Friday was big, and then Boykins over the weekend on his official visit, getting him was big as well, because those were two guys that they had identified and targeted and went hard after. They appear to be quality football players and somebody that they can win with and build their defense with. So there is a ton of momentum in Gamecock football recruiting going on right now. I know people pay attention to the rankings. I don't, but I've seen it flash before my eyes that they're as high as number 3 in the 247 composite ranking, which is great for now. I mean, they still got 11 more spots to fill, and other teams are going to start grabbing big-time players as well, so there could be some adjusting going on there. But that is a credit to Will Muschamp and his staff to have their recruiting at the level that it is right now based on the commitments they've got to this point.
Yeah, and I mean, Boykins is big. I know a lot of people just recognize this just right off the bat, but he's a guy who had a Clemson offer. And, those offers, as we've told you from – just watching Dabo Sweeney's recruiting over the course of the last couple of years, they're very choosy with who they offer. And the fact that they can nab a guy that your rival is in on is something that can't be understated, and the fact that we find out this weekend Ryan Helinski made the Elite 11 finals. So, I mean, things for 2019 are starting to shape up mighty nicely for South Carolina. And we talk so much about trying to turn the tide back in the direction of the Midlands. We could start seeing the first fruits of that tide turning here in the course of recruiting for the 2019 class, and also for what South Carolina has in store for the 2018 football season. We'll come back, talk more baseball. We'll hear from the head coach of the Gamecocks, Mark Kingston. We'll hear from Madison Stokes, Ray Tanner, Monty Lee, Gary Gilmore, and a whole bunch more, as well as you. 800-956-7266. More of your phone calls on Gamecock and Clemson baseball from the weekend that has South Carolina standing in the Supers.
Be safe. See you back in town. Okay. Okay, dokie. Bet at 500.
Welcome back, Sports Talk South Carolina Radio Network. We'll give you the teams that have currently punched their tickets to the Super Regionals. Auburn gets in out of the Raleigh Regional, upsetting the host seed NC State there. The winner of the Gainesville Regional will take them on. They have overcome some weather in Gainesville, Florida, and Florida Atlantic, now playing in the first of possibly 2 games today. Texas Tech advances out of the Lubbock Regional. They beat Louisville 11-6. It was a bad weekend for the ACC. Duke might have a chance to redeem themselves, though, after beating Georgia earlier today, 8-5, and leading 5-3 currently in the bottom of the 4th inning. In the Athens Regional, they would take on Texas Tech if they are to advance, or whoever advances out of the regional will take on Texas Tech. As we mentioned before, Arkansas advancing out of the Fayetteville Regional. They beat Dallas Baptist 4-3 in the decisive game yesterday. So South Carolina will face them most likely in Fayetteville. It's basically almost a guarantee that they will, but of course the committee has to convene in order to make that number 100% official. The 2 in the other side of the bracket that included the Conway Regional, Washington, the 3rd seed out of Conway, advances to take on another 3 seed, Cal State Fullerton, who wins the Stanford Regional. So a couple of surprise winners out there. Coastal ended up losing in their final contest to UConn, trying to get themselves back in the losers bracket yesterday, but they fall 6-5, and then Washington beat UConn 9-6. Vanderbilt comes out of the Clemson Regional with a 19-6 victory. Vandy, Corn, 10 RBIs from Connor Kaiser in the game. That's an NCAA tournament record, 9 home runs from them as a team. Spencer Strider did not have it, and nobody behind him did either. And some of the numbers for Clemson, I mean, they did not get it done from their 3 big people in the order. Davidson, Williams, and Beer all had lost weekends, except for the fact that Williams does make the all-tournament team. But there were some times where they could not get runners in. Seth Beer was 2 for 16 this past weekend. The only 2 hits were solo homers. One of them was big in the game against Morehead State, but outside of that, Corn, there was a lot of lack of timely hitting and no length from the starting pitching for them. It was just a lost weekend.
Yeah, it's tough for Clemson, you know, being home for the 3rd year in a row and the pressure mounting to advance to that super regional for the first time from Monty Lee, and it just didn't happen. And again, Vanderbilt is the culprit in Clemson's eyes. That's 3 times in the last 4 years, I believe, that Vandy has knocked well, actually, when they went to Vandy in Jack's Leggett's last season, they didn't play Vandy. That's right. They ended up losing to 2 other teams, but they were at Vandy when that happened. And now Vandy has beaten them at Clemson the last 2 years. And I think it's the same recipe for disaster for Clemson in these losses is that they've just run out of pitching. They didn't have a deep enough bullpen to carry them and eat up innings in these situations, and teams just teed off. Look, we saw Vandy throughout the regular season struggle. They did not have a great record. And so this was not one of Vandy's better teams, yet you do know that Vandy's always going to have hard throwers, guys in the low to mid 90s throughout their rotation, and big guys they can bring in out of the bullpen to mow it down. Nobody, I think, could foresee the offensive outburst. 9 home runs yesterday is just ridiculous, and one guy nearly hitting for the home run cycle, which might have been a first at any level of baseball. I've never heard of anybody hitting 4 home runs in a game, each of the different varieties. So it's you know, people, I know the Clemson fans are upset and disappointed and questioning Monty Lee. You were there. You saw the whole thing. I don't know that Monty and his staff, in terms of their managing of those games, did anything to lead to the losses. It's just the talent factor has to be improved there from the standpoint of more and better arms, I think. All year long, we thought Clemson had plenty of offense. When you looked at the home run power that they had, the pitching at times was questionable, but we did think that the back end of the bullpen was always going to be good with Riley Gillum and
Miller.
And Miller and those guys, yeah. But they just, as Monty said afterwards, they just flat ran out of gas in those arms in the latter stage there against Vanderbilt.
They did. They will take on Mississippi State, and that's the thing that hurts most for Clemson is the fact that they would have gotten a chance to host a regional if they would have gotten through, but instead it's Vanderbilt, Mississippi State. They'll determine the host in that regional later on tonight. Stetson and North Carolina will play in the Supers, as will Minnesota and Oregon State. South Carolina will face Arkansas after their 8-4 victory over UNC Wilmington. Here's a little bit from Mark Kingston earlier today, just after the game finished.
Team, very happy for our alumni, very happy for our fans and everybody that cares about Gamecock baseball. Big day for us today, going to the Super Regionals from where we were about the midway point. Happy for everybody that cares about this program. So with that, be happy to take questions.
And how big was that inning after UNCW? You've been coming back and answering y'all's runs just to navigate.
Yeah, very important because it was, we talk about it all the time. This game is about you take a punch, you throw a punch, take a punch and throw a punch. And that's a really good team that was in the other dugout today. I think the media talked about it was probably the best number 4 seed in the country, and I would agree with that. They ended up with 39 wins. They had a 3.2 team ERA. That was a tough bunch in that group, and they could really swing the bat too. We knew it was going to be a battle today. We knew it was going to be a battle. We wanted to try to get it done in game 1, and they obviously didn't want to let us do that. So just thought it was a solid baseball game with 2 real high-quality teams.
Mark, can you describe how proud you are of this team for being where they were 6-7 weeks ago and now?
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy for them. I'm happy for these kids that they get to enjoy what college baseball is at its finest. I mean, going to Super Regionals, having a chance to go to Omaha. I mean, as a coach, you want to see your guys experience that. Years ago, they decided to come to this program because they want to experience that. So to see them deal with the ups and downs and everything they've had for a while now, to see them get that out and say, hey, we're going to Supers with a chance to go to Omaha. That, as a coach, that's what you care about the most, seeing the hard work, seeing the lessons that these kids can take from this about never giving up and battling adversity. And if you keep fighting, this is what can be waiting for you. To me, that's very satisfying.
Coach, what makes this team mentally strong? I mean, throughout the game, especially in the early portions, you guys were leaving some opportunities on the table, but you just kept hacking away. It didn't seem like the team lost confidence.
Right. Well, we have some very good seniors. You have to start there. We have some very good seniors that make sure that they're echoing in the dugout that no matter what, we keep fighting, that you don't get down no matter what. You just have to keep pushing forward. So I'll start with number 1. We have very good senior leadership. And so from there, it's just you want that to be the culture of your program, that people say, hey, if we're going to knock South Carolina out, they're going to be a really tough out. So to me, that's just what we have always been known for in this program, and we want to make sure we're always known as being that type of team.
Mark, you said before the regional would probably come down to pitching, and your guys were able to stay out there and eat innings. Just how good is that to see it happening now when maybe earlier in the season? Yeah,
it's outstanding. And the guy that pitched today, had some struggles throughout the year, and some of those Tuesday games that we didn't think we should lose necessarily. He was on the mound getting experience, taking some lumps along the way, but that's why you have to do that on a Tuesday night. You have to give guys, freshmen especially, you have to give them innings so that when you need them in a regional setting, they're ready. And I think that's what, everything that led up to today prepared Carmen to be as good as he was. So to me, that's the payoff. You take some bumps along the way, but the payoff is that kid is ready when you give him the ball in a regional setting.
Backing off that a little bit, can you just talk about Sawyer's performance and your confidence in him?
Well, I've said it all year. He's one of the gutsiest, most competitive kids we have, if not the top. And he got us 3 big outs there at the end. Eddie, we thought, was just starting to run a little bit out of gas. Gave up the 2 hard hit balls, so we just thought, all right, he gave us everything he could, 45 pitches, 3 innings. We tried to sneak a few more outs out of him, but as soon as we saw that, the ball wasn't quite as sharp, we went to our next guy that we trusted. And, so Sawyer got us big outs the other night, and he got us 3 big outs today. And then he's as much – he gets by – he has talent. Make no mistake, he has very good talent, but he gets by on competitiveness and heart just as much.
Obviously, you have played for Arkansas before. It might have been a while ago, but you know how much will that help going into this?
Yeah, well, I mean, there won't be any mysteries or secrets. They know us, we know them. It's going to be about playing the best baseball and who makes the most pitches. They're 30. Well, they're probably 33-3 at home at this point. So we don't expect it to be easy, but nothing's been easy for us all year. So we'll go in there, we'll give it our best shot, and whoever makes the most pitches and gets the most big hits and plays the best defense, that's who will win.
That is Mark Kingston, the Gamecock head coach. When we come back, more on the Gamecock recruiting weekend, some Clemson baseball calls as well, and we will continue to talk about the Gamecock Super Regional win.
Hey, Corn, we got a Clemson baseball call. Did you want to take that before you give more numbers, or you want to get that over?
You can take the call first.
Corn, can you hear me?
Yeah. You can take the call first.
Okay.
Take the call. Take the call. Take the call.
How much recruiting do you have?
Pretty fair amount. I mean, I'll cut it down. I'll reduce it. I mean, I don't have to go into details on all this stuff.
How's your signal looking over there?
How's my signal looking? What do you mean?
Hold on a second. Oh, the audio you gave us, was that, well, how did you record that?
In my recorder. In my recorder.
He said it was really low.
Well, because they are all, they don't, I don't know, they're off mic, you know, coaches and players, they don't get into the mic now. I pumped it up. I think it sounds, I mean, sounded plenty audible to me, but I pumped it up best I could.
Okay.
Yeah, I gave it like a 20 dB boost, I believe. East Carolina University.
Dwight Clark just passed away, Corn.
Oh, no. Well, that sure is sad. Well, he went fast. That sure is. Then again, I'm happy. I'm happy for him, man. Who wants to see somebody suffer like that with Lou Gehrig's disease? Jeez, much as you hate to lose a guy.
These guys, they never sleep. Check out our web at SportsTalkSC.com. Now, more of Sports Talk on the South Carolina Radio Network.
Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network. Willie P. and the Corn from Greenville. We'll get to more of your phone calls. Corn's recruiting report coming up next, but it's our unfortunate duty to report to you some very sad news. We've lost the former Clemson wide receiver and former 49er wide receiver, Dwight Clark. His battle with ALS has unfortunately come to a close. His wife, Kelly, putting on Dwight's Twitter account, "I'm heartbroken to tell you that today I lost my best friend and husband. He passed peacefully, surrounded by many of the people he loved most. I'm thankful for all of Dwight's friends, teammates, and 49ers fans who have sent their love during his battle with ALS, Kelly Clark." And we had just gotten done talking about him, Corn, at the South Carolina Football Hall of Fame last month, and talking a lot about his memory and what he did for Clemson and putting them kind of on the map, especially after what he did in the league, and just an unfortunate passing from somebody who certainly will be missed.
Oh, there's no question about it. One of the all-time greats. And I'm going to give a little different take on it, however. Yes, very sad to hear the news, but then again, you got to be kind of relieved for the family and for him. Who wants to see somebody suffer with ALS like that and the personal torment that he was going through and the family was going through? Yes, I know it's a huge, horrendous loss, but then again, it might just be better off for all concerned that it has come to an end because he was not going to get any better. That's the thing. It's not something you can ever recover from. And you struggle to live. And what happens, of course, is it pulls down people around you who are trying to take care of you. So on the one hand, I'm sad, but I think there also should maybe some relief for all concerned that it's now come to an end. I mean, I'm not trying to be morbid about it or anything. I'm trying to look at it a little bit more realistically.
Yeah, certainly right. 800-956-7266. We drastically transition as we only can to say we have Billy from Surfside Beach on the line. Wants to talk a little Clemson baseball. Billy, what's happening?
Hey, what's going on? And yeah, Phil's known me through the years. I hate that because I'm a San Francisco fan, from the days of Montana Rice and Taylor and all Brent Jones and all those guys. And of course, I believe the real orange, and that's Clemson Tiger Orange. But I got one thing for baseball, and I got a football comment, and I'll take your, reaction off the air. I kind of want to pose this question. Monty Lee, I love what Monty Lee's done. Monty Lee's a great recruiter. He's a great game day coach. He owns the rivalry right now. And when is Dan Radakovich with his postseason woes? Last year it was Oklahoma State. The first year, I think he might have got a little pass, but I mean, this is 3 straight. And when does the rope get a little tightened, if you know what I mean, with Dan Radakovich? Just say he gets bounced again next year. And I'll ask you that, and then I've got something for football. I want to get some clarification what Will, when you said the tide's turning in the Midlands with the Gamecocks momentum, and I know they've landed their first 5. Well, I know Phil's going to cringe when I say 5-star. But Pickens is a fine football player. The Gamecocks have some momentum going. But come on, Will, it's going to be a while. Right now on South Carolina's current roster, I would say Zach Bailey and Deebo Samuel are the only players on the whole roster that would probably get in the rotation with Clemson right now. Clemson's at a whole new level. Let's just see. The better question is, Phil and Will, is Jake Bentley going to go his whole career and not score on the Clemson first team defense? And anyway, I'm going to take your comments off the air. Go Tigers.
I will say this about baseball, Corn. There is no rope that needs to be tightened around Monty Lee. But I will say this. You are having some people right now whose patience has worn thin. But in my mind, you can't penalize a guy for getting to 3 consecutive postseasons and hosting and putting up the regular season wins that they have. I mean, it's so hard to get to this level as personified by the Gamecocks not even getting there last year. I don't think you penalize somebody who's gotten a postseason, do you?
No. Even though Jack Leggett got fired and he was taking the Tigers to the postseason practically every year, but he just wasn't winning a national championship as was happening in Columbia. I mean, Jack's biggest problem wasn't what he was doing with Clemson. It was what was happening with Ray Tanner in South Carolina. I mean, Ray made 6 World Series appearances. He won 2 national championships and played for a 3rd, and they had that big win against Clemson in 2010 out there. So all those things conspired against Jack Leggett when Dan Radakovich decided to make the change. Plus, I don't think there was a really good relationship between those 2 men. This is Dan's hire in Monty, and he's going to give Monty every opportunity. Look, they were picked to finish 3rd in their division. They won their division. They nearly won the ACC regular season championship. They won 47 games. They beat South Carolina in the head-to-head series. They had a lot of high marks on the season. You are measured, however, at this level by what you do in the postseason. But a lot of great coaches, as we know, get to the postseason and don't get it done in a big way. Just ask Mike Martin at Florida State, and he's the winningest coach in college baseball. So I think patience is a virtue, and I think especially in baseball simply because of the nature of the game, because you go out in any baseball game and you run into the wrong guy on the mound at the wrong time, and you can have the greatest lineup in the history of the sport, and you won't be able to scratch a run across, and you look like a loser. So you as a coach, you've done nothing but right in your lineup and run your guys out there as you've done every other game of the season. So Monty Lee is a fine baseball coach, an excellent recruiter. He wears Clemson well. He represents well. But no, there's no reason for anybody to get all tangled up here over Monty Lee.
We are late in the hour. Do you want to postpone your recruiting report to top, or do you have time to get in a couple of nuggets?
Let's go ahead and wrap up the baseball here. Not wrap it up, but talk a little bit more about baseball.
Yeah, well, here's the thing. I want to get to Billy's second point, too, about my comment about the Midlands. Listen, I'm not trying to sit here and say that South Carolina is overtaking Clemson or close to overtaking Clemson, but when you start beating out Clemson for recruits and you have an Elite 11 quarterback, that shows you that the tide is starting to turn back towards South Carolina. Now, I will also say this. South Carolina's biggest problem shouldn't be what's happening in the upstate. It should be what's happening with the teams that are going up against them in their conference. They should be worried about what Georgia's doing in recruiting more than what Clemson is doing in recruiting. I know you play Clemson every year, but this has been my biggest gripe with Gamecock fans. They are too concerned about they're too concerned about the school that's off of I-85 in their own state instead of the one that's off of I-85 in their own conference. That's my biggest peeve with them.
Well, here's my belief. You can have two major programs in one state and both recruit extremely well.
Yes.
It has nothing to do with one or the other. Now, I don't know that any tide has turned, as you might suggest, because Clemson is still recruiting at a very high level. They might very well get Cameron Kelly on Thursday, highly recruited defensive back out of Virginia, to add to their list, and they're just getting started. I mean, Clemson is sort of in stop and go when it comes to recruiting. They have a little run, then they have a little break, and they have a little run. And see, Dabo is not following the lead of others, and he's not having any official visits in the spring and summer. He doesn't believe in that. It's not his way of recruiting. But they do have summer camps coming up when they do a lot of evaluation, hand out a lot of offers, and tend to get commitments from their summer camp. So more are coming at Clemson, and they're going to be pretty high-level players too. So I don't know that any tide has turned. Let's just say South Carolina is recruiting extremely well for them, and Clemson continues to recruit extremely well.
What I think I meant to say is they're starting to get players. They're starting to get dudes now, and they weren't getting dudes before. Not that Clemson's going to stop getting dudes, but now South Carolina is getting some dudes, and that I think is the biggest thing for them. And the fact is, now that they're getting dudes, they might be able to start closing the gap. I'm not saying the gap is close to being closed, but once you start getting dudes, that's a good thing. Now you got to have them coached, obviously. Is that fair? Is that a fairer statement to amend from what I said earlier?
Yeah, I think so. I think you're right. They're getting better and better players. The only way to know if they're closing the gap is every late November. What happens in that game? That is the only way to determine if the gap is being closed.
Maybe they can start shopping at Whole Foods more often now instead of Publix.
Whatever you suggest.
That's back to our earlier convo we were having back during the football season. Your full recruiting report. We're going to hear from Monty Lee, Madison Stokes, Ray Tanner, Gary Gilmore. Plenty to get to in hour two of Sports Talk next.
Man, it was a fast hour.
Went by quick.
Mm-hmm. How's my line sounding? We still sounding good?
Yeah, still holding it down.
I tell you, the people here at East Carolina are just the absolute nicest. I got to give a shout out. They're just the absolute nicest people in the world.
Hey, we still got 4 audio pieces to play.
Yeah. Let's come back and do recruiting, and we'll go from there.
You know what order you want?
Yeah, Madison Stokes and then Ray Tanner from me.
When do you want to do Monty or Gilmore? You just want to sprinkle those?
Well, we'll come back and do recruiting. I may or may not take up the whole segment. Probably not. I'll try not to. Then we can do Madison. And then we can do – let's finish up here first. Let's make that the priority. So then we'll do Ray at 7:20, Monty at 7:30, Gilly at 7:45. Am I forgetting anything?
I think that's everybody.
Then let's do it.
All right, Madison, Ray, Monty, and Gilly.
Correct. Storm Duck. Storm Duck was offered by North Carolina. I love that name, Storm Duck. Got to be the greatest name in recruiting.
Just let you know, Madison is 233. So if you're going to do that after you're recruiting.
Yeah.
You got your clock up there?
Oh, good point. I'll get it. The Kingston, hearing you play it back, it sounded fine to me. It sounded low on y'all's end.
Oh, well, he amplified some of the audio on it.
That's weird because I did too. Let me go back here and look at.
Hey, when does the draft start?
7 o'clock, I believe. Yeah, I showed plenty of level on my end. Maybe it lost some on the transmission. Well, I guess it's got maybe the mid parts a little bit low. Anyway, you can blow it up as high as you want to. 7 o'clock, 18, 19, 20, 21.
Any word on when y'all getting y'all cable boxes?
Let's see. I need to. Yeah, they wrote me back. We have to go. We got to. I have to check on that.
Until that, I was thinking I might have to figure out a way to run a cable cord from the box in here to those TVs, or just move this box in there.
Yeah, you could do that. By the way, our Ray Tanner interview is an exclusive. Duke is beating Georgia.
Round 2 of Sports Talk up next with your hosts Phil Kornblut, Will Pelagic, and the Professor Tom Hayes. Don't leave us hanging. Join the show, 800-956-7266.
Welcome back, Hour 2, Sports Talk South Carolina Radio Network with Phil Kornblut in Greenville, North Carolina. I'm Will Pelagic. Professor Tom Hayes has Monday off. Ryan Leonard behind the glass, pushing the buttons, making us sound good. South Carolina victorious over UNC Wilmington 8-4. We'll hear from Madison Stokes in this segment and also get you some more from Clemson and Coastal Carolina. Also, Corn's exclusive interview with Ray Tanner. We're also keeping you abreast of what's going on in the Major League Baseball first-year player draft. The first round begins tonight in America's Armpit, Secaucus, New Jersey. But first, Corn gives us the recruiting report for Monday off a big weekend for Gamecock football and basketball.
Oh, yeah. I got a lot to pass along to you. Of course, the Gamecocks picking up commitments for football and basketball and transfers and all that. We'll try to summarize it for you because much of it happened back on Saturday. Linebacker Derek Boykins of Concord, North Carolina, 6'2", 215. He committed to Will Muschamp while in for his official visit. And he, again, credited Muschamp's recruiting efforts on him for leading to this commitment, said he heard more and talked more with Muschamp than any of the other coaches that he had been talking to. That was the second commitment to the Gamecocks recruiting weekend in football. Defensive end Joseph Anderson of Murfreesboro, Tennessee, committed on Friday. That gives the Gamecocks 14 recruits in their football class. Now, some other notes from the weekend. Defensive back Jamie Robinson of Cordele, Georgia, in for his official visit. And, of course, talked a lot with the coaches about their plans for him. They compare him to Matt Elam, who played for Muschamp at Florida. They like him as a safety and as a nickel. I think he's got a chance to play early. He does plan to take other officials to Michigan, Auburn, Georgia, and Kentucky. Does not claim a leader right now. Defensive lineman Trevon Walker, Thomaston, Georgia. Very highly recruited defensive lineman. He's the cousin of the Wanhams at USC. And, of course, he met up with them, and DJ Wanham in particular showed him around. South Carolina is battling some of the heavyweights for him. Clemson, Georgia, and Alabama have also been strong, and he is not locked in on those four schools right now, but those are kind of the ones that are maybe at the top of his list at this point. Defensive end, Savion Jackson of Clayton, North Carolina, in for his official visit at USC. And he said that he does not have any other visits scheduled at this point. He plans to release a top 4 to 5 this summer. Some others on his list right now: Virginia, Oklahoma, NC State, Alabama, Duke, Louisville, Ohio State, East Carolina, Penn State, Florida, Auburn, Virginia Tech, and Tennessee from the list that he released. Offensive lineman Anthony Wiggin of Lackawanna Junior College in Pennsylvania made his official over the weekend. He said he really enjoyed it. He spent a lot of time with offensive line coach Eric Wolford. and he showed them the ropes around USC. And they've told him they need a tackle because they lose 3, and he has a chance to come in and start right away. And that was big with him. He will visit Louisville this weekend, scheduled to visit Ole Miss and Penn State in December. He plans to make a decision in October. Defensive lineman C.J. Clark did not make it to USC for an official this weekend, as had been scheduled and reported. He said he had to cancel due to family plans, but he will reschedule. He is at Georgia, or was at Georgia, either yesterday or today. USC, North Carolina, NC State, Tennessee, Georgia on his short list. Defensive back Cameron Kelly of Chesapeake, Virginia, was at Clemson over the weekend. He plans to announce Thursday. Clemson, Virginia, Oklahoma, Penn State among the strong contenders. Clemson in the top 5 with defensive back Jalen Phillips of Lawrenceville, Georgia, with Alabama, Oklahoma, Tennessee, and Southern Cal. Offensive lineman Trevor Keegan of Crystal Lake, Illinois, was offered by Clemson Saturday on a visit. He was at Georgia Sunday and Alabama today. Linebacker Jamie Petway, Albany, Georgia, plans to be at USC this coming weekend for a regular visit and perhaps a camp that day. Defensive end Devon Lindsay of Fayetteville, North Carolina, who had a USC offer, committed to NC State. 2020 tight end Lavelle Davis of Woodland was offered by Georgia Tech. Athlete Johnny Dixon of Tampa is at USC today for a camp that begins tomorrow. Alabama, Miami, Penn State, Ohio State also on his short list. USC and Clemson in the top 10 with 2020 defensive back Luke Hill of Washington, D.C. Defensive back Storm Duck of Boiling Springs was offered by North Carolina. USC target defensive back DJ Daniel was at Georgia over the weekend for a visit, and he's expected in for camp this week at USC. Basketball, USC got a commitments from 6'7" Keyshawn Bryant of Winter Haven, Florida. When the Brian Bowen situation ended the way it did, that opened the door for Bryant to come to South Carolina. They had been recruiting him and kind of telling him, we want you, but we got to wait and see how this situation works out. And once the Bowen deal fell through, they immediately got in touch with him, and that was that. Bryant did take an official visit to Tulane the first part of last week, and then he made an official visit to USC, and he was sold on South Carolina at that point. He averaged 22 points and 8 rebounds per game last season. Basketball analysts who have critiqued him rave about his jumping ability and his ability to get to the rim. He says he's a more complete player than that. He handles the ball. He plays defense. He's got a good mid-range jump shot. And some other offers for him: Wichita State, Florida Gulf Coast, Georgia, Memphis, and Charlotte. And he said he hopes to be enrolling in school this week or next week if he can. Also over the weekend, 6'4" Jair Bolden, a Brooklyn native who played the past 2 seasons at George Washington, announced he's transferring to USC. He'll sit out the coming season, leaving him 2 to play with the Gamecocks. He took an official visit on Friday and Saturday. He also visited Seton Hall in San Diego after deciding to transfer in early April. But he liked the opportunity at USC, he liked the family feel there, he liked what Martin has going on, and so he went with South Carolina. Last season, he started 24 of 32 games. He averaged 11 points, 3 rebounds. He led his team with 98 assists, 37% shooting from the floor, 32% from 3, and 68% from the line. 6'7" Christian Brown in the 2019 class from Lower Richland made an official visit to UNLV over the weekend. Marvin Menzies has made him a prime target for the Rebels. He said he really liked it out there. The interesting part of our conversation was that he said he had not had much contact in the last month or so from South Carolina after he and his mother visited there back in April, and not all that much contact from Clemson in recent weeks. Seton Hall, Florida, Georgia, and NC State are some others who have been on his short list. And he also said that Arizona State and Maryland are showing interest in him as well. USC target 2019 6'11" Brandon Stone was offered by LaSalle. And new upstate coach Dave Dickerson announced his first signing class today. It includes 6'6" Brandon Martin of Cardinal Newman. Now, I don't want to, if I'm Coach Dickerson, be careful here. I don't want to upset the parents of this particular young man. His father is, of course, USC coach Frank Martin. You don't want him breathing down your neck about get my son more playing time. He also signed 6'6" Bryson Mazzone of North Augusta. Can you see Frank sitting in the stands, right behind the bench, kind of like parents do at South Carolina games and scream at the coach
Frank
about not playing his son?
You remember the Frank Martin video that came out? It was a viral video from comments he made early in the season about how he can't stand these parents who sit in the stands and coach their players while they're in the stands. And he basically told his kid, don't come to me, go to your coach. If you can't deal with your coach, I'm your father. I'm not your coach. You have to respect your coach. So he actually, I'm sure, will take a much more level approach, I would think, to his kid's situation than I'm sure. Plus during his season, I mean, he's got his own problems to figure out, not necessarily what is going on with his kid. But
he and Dave Dickerson are very close. He trusts Dave Dickerson to do the right thing by his son. That's probably why his son ended up going there. And I think his son's a pretty good player from what I've heard. So that's a real good pickup for Dave Dickerson there.
Auburn's Casey Mize, the Golden Spike semifinalist, the pitcher out of Auburn, is the #1 overall selection to the Detroit Tigers. So first pick is in. When it comes in for the MLB first-year player draft, the Giants are on the clock. We'll keep you updated on what's going on. If any SEC, ACC, or players of local import are involved. Coming up next, we'll hear from Madison Stokes of the Gamecock baseball team and Ray Tanner, exclusive interview with Phil Kornblut about not only the Gamecocks advancing, but how the process will go for when they will play. Next on Sports Talk.
Very good, very good, very good, very good, very good. Let's see if I can get this done here.
All right, we're going to do Tanner and Madison in this next one.
Yeah, we can. We can do them both.
He's going to throw it to you, just a quick intro so we can get both of them in.
Okay.
So we'll go to the first one, Madison. Then I'll come back to you for another quick intro, and then we'll go to the next one.
Okay.
This is the place to talk Tigers, Gamecocks, and more. Sports talk across the state on the South Carolina Radio Network.
Well, it looks like the San Francisco Giants have found their next Buster Posey, as Joey Bart of Georgia Tech is taken with the second overall pick in the first-year player Major League Baseball draft. Bart compares very much to Buster Posey, according to the MLB Network executives who were analyzing that, but got to see him play in the ACC tournament. He's definitely strong, the real deal, and he goes to the San Francisco Giants with the number 2 overall pick. Again, Casey Mize of Auburn, the pitcher there, goes to Detroit. But more from Greenville, North Carolina now with Phil Kornblut as the Gamecocks are on to the Super Regionals.
Indeed, they are, as they sweep their way through this regional, winning all 3 games, capping it off with an 8-4 win today over UNCW. The Gamecocks move on to play at Arkansas. The time and date to be announced in the morning. The Gamecocks had many heroes today, 15 hits. One of those, Madison Stokes, who had a couple of hits and 3 RBIs. He is really the heart and the soul senior leader of this group. He's been through the ups and the downs. He's been to a super regional before in his career. Afterwards, he talked with the media about getting this win today and moving on.
Yeah, it felt good. I mean, we had the lead earlier in the game, and then just to put some insurance runs up later in the game, I think for sure helped, Eddie when he was on the mound. So it felt good.
Madison, what have you learned about your teammates throughout this regional? Different guys stepping up in different moments put you guys in this position when you get to return to Super Regional play.
I think I have trust in every player to do their role and their job on this team. I know coaches trust each player to do their job, and I think each of us did that this weekend. I personally think Carmen Majenska should be sitting here where I am today, or Jonah Bride. What they did for us today is special. What they did for us this weekend, meant a lot, and it contributed to make it or help us to get to a super. So just really excited to see what we can do and what also we can do in the supers and past that.
You are one of the few guys on this team that's played in a super. Have you started to talk to the other guys about what to expect and how big the moment is?
Not yet, because we weren't there yet. We had to win today to make sure we can get to that position. So, once we get back to Columbia, we can start preparing for that. But we haven't made it yet, or we didn't make it yet before this game. We had a job to do today.
Emotion seeing the final out just after what you went through your career and obviously last year's. What was the emotion like seeing the final out?
I mean, I was obviously excited, but we've got some more work to do. I've been in this position before along with other players on the team, and we came up short. So I'm really excited to see what we can do the rest of the season. I was pumped just like the other guys were to get that last out to make it to supers, and I'm just really pumped to see what we can do next weekend.
Seems guys like this was a pretty low-key celebration, for winning a regional for a team that 7 weeks ago looked kind of down and out. I know you guys have talked about that stuff a lot, but is the bar just been raised now for this group?
I mean, we know what we can do. Early in the season, that didn't show that, but we've battled. We've been through the lowest of lows, and we've proven to the country what we can do. And so to be this far, to prove what we can do to everybody watching, that just shows the team that we have, the potential that we have, and we're not done yet.
Is that a conscious decision for kind of a more low-key celebration?
Yeah, I mean, we expected to be here. And now that we're here, we expect to make it further than that. So we're not going to stop.
Okay, that's Madison Stokes of the Gamecocks talking about getting that win today over UNC Wilmington and keeping the Gamecocks' hopes for another trip to Omaha alive. Mark Kingston in his first year, first time he has won a regional as a head coach. Right after the game, Ray Tanner was over the USC dugout congratulating everybody, grinning from ear to ear. He knows the feeling of winning a regional, getting to a super regional and beyond. Had a chance to talk with him about what he saw on the field here today from his Gamecocks.
How do you feel about this? First-year head coach, up and down season, gets hot in the second half, rolls through this regional and onto a super regional. What do you think of the job your team did?
Well, fabulous. I mean, you go back to, I guess, somewhere near the midway point, we're 20-17 and hoping to get hot at some point. And These guys did a heck of a job down the backstretch, and some great baseball here in Greenville. And women's softball, went to the super regionals, and now the baseball team has followed suit.
What do you think about Mark Kingston, the way he has just held everything together, even keel? You can never tell with this guy if he wins or loses.
I've told him many times that I couldn't coach this day and age because I couldn't be like he was. I couldn't keep my emotions intact. He's very optimistic. He's positive. He understands this is a game of adversity. He's always encouraging players. He's teaching. He holds them responsible and accountable. But, he's got that perfect intensity where, he can balance it out. I never was that good at balancing it out, but he kept them going. He kept the engine running, and, we won those 5 series down the backstretch to put ourselves in a position to play at the end of the year. And you come in here and in a really good regional, if you look at the RPIs, and we allowed 2, 3, and 4 runs in 3 games.
Yeah, the pitching was really good. The bullpen was excellent in particular, and a lot of offense in this particular game. 18 left on base, but enough hits, enough runs.
Well, we did leave a bunch on early in the game for sure, but it's just it's fitting. You have a lot of big players step up, and Jonah Bride sort of put a little exclamation point on the game when he hits that home run. It can't be a better guy across the country. He's a senior leading his team, hanging in there, and hits a big home run to give us a chance because this UNC Wilmington team, one of the best teams in the country toward the end, just like we were. So it was a great weekend for us, and I want to get a chance to keep playing.
When do you think they'll start the regional in Fayetteville?
Well, I don't know. I'm involved in that committee, and we have a 10 o'clock conference call tonight. I know there's some rain going on in Florida right now. Georgia and Duke are yet to play again. Duke came back and won that game. Tennessee Tech and Ole Miss have to play. So there's some things going on. You would think because we finished on Monday, there's a possibility it would start Saturday, but that's completely just speculation on my part. We'll have a committee call at 10 and make some decisions.
All right. And, they were out at Fayetteville early this year, lost 2 out of 3. And as well as anybody, that's a tough place to go win a series.
Well, it is. And, I know I just follow SEC baseball, and I think right now they're like 33-3 at home this year at Baum Stadium. So they're bound to eventually lose, aren't they? But they're great. Dave Van Horn and his club, they pitch, they play well. You're going to have 12,000 people there. And the 3 games that we played out there was in kind of cold weather, but there were 3 really close games. So we played them tough, and you gotta be great this time of year, but we get a chance. We're not going to be favored, that's for sure, but we get a chance to go play.
What would it mean to go to Omaha for Mark Kingston in this program in his first year?
Well, you can't. I mean, if that was to happen, you would say, how in the world did he do that? I mean, you go back again to the 20-17 record, and we're trying to fight our way to get down the backstretch. And if he was able to somehow win a couple of games, that's one of the greatest jobs in all of college baseball.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
All right, very pleased. Ray Tanner talking to us after the Gamecocks won the regional today. Here's a few more numbers on USC. As a team for the 3 games, the Gamecocks batted .336. The Gamecocks had a slugging percentage of .436, had a couple of home runs, 5 doubles, no triples in the regional. They did draw 11 walks. They only committed the 1 error. As far as the pitching staff, a .233 earned run average. Again, the bullpen allowing just 1 earned run in its work in this regional, and they got some pretty good work because, remember, Adam Hill had a short stint in the opener on Friday, and the bullpen had to come in and pick him up, and the bullpen did a great job throughout the weekend. So the bullpen with a 2.33 ERA, and you put that together with outstanding defense and big hitting and some timely hitting, and you get the result of what the Gamecocks did here in Greenville.
It's certainly amazing to see what they've done, and I'm very curious to see the temperament of this team. I mean, they've taken a bunker mentality, and you have to know that they feel like they can requite themselves and acquit themselves a little bit better against Arkansas because while Arkansas has made the margin for error very thin, they've been right there in the games they play with against them in the regular season. I know that they probably were a little bit behind the 8 ball when they took them on in Hoover, but they don't have quit in them. Some of the interesting scores going on right now, Florida is down to Florida Atlantic right now. FAU needing to win twice in order to advance the Super Regionals, but they're up 7-2 in the 5th, a chance to force a decisive game against the Gators. Duke is leading Georgia in that regional in a decisive game right now, 6-3. And Tennessee Tech has pushed Ole Miss to the brink. They're playing a decisive game right now in Oxford. So still a lot to be decided in the final 3 regional games in order to determine the final 3 spots at Super Regional. We'll talk Clemson's post-mortem next.
Let me call my wife real quick. I can't wait to sleep in my own bed. I'll call her later. Hell, sucko.
We're going to do Clemson this segment.
Okie schmoky.
Will's about to go ham. His words.
What does that mean?
No idea.
Sounds like a hippie schedule. I mean, a hippie thing. Media accountability.
Sports Talk South Carolina Radio Network here on a Monday, the 4th day of June 2018. And we're brought to you by Founders Federal Credit Union. Whether you need a quick getaway or a relaxing stay at a beach resort, a vacation loan from Founders can make it happen. Apply online at foundersfcu.com/vacation. And if you're not a Founders member, visit relaxjoinfounders.com to see if you qualify for membership. So we spent a lot of time on the Gamecocks, and I know that from some people, we might get a bit of a stigma placed against us for taking it easy on Clemson when things go badly in the upstate. Well, I'm going to tell you the buck's about to stop because I got some issues with what happened this weekend at Doug Kingsmore Stadium. Number one, the atmosphere on Friday and Saturday nights when Clemson played was unbelievable. Full house, full boat, whole bit, lots of cheering, back and forth on both sides. It was nice. Contentious at times, which is cool, like fans when they mix it up. Sunday, it was a different story. The early game against St. John's brought more fans, or brought like a 25 a pocket of 25 fans, and they were louder collectively. And I know it was a bunch of stupid New Yorkers, but they were louder collectively than the entire Clemson contingent was on Sunday afternoon. I mean, it was basically like I think most of Clemson fans were still in church, and the ones who were in Doug Kingsmore Stadium treated it like it was church. I mean, that's how bad it was Sunday afternoon. More people came Sunday night, but I swear to goodness gracious, it sounded like they were basically Chicago Cub fans before 2015. I mean, that's how it basically felt. It felt like, oh, here we go again. Here it comes again. And I know that there has to be a little bit of, just shock value and something going on inside that fan base where, here they go again. This is the third time in a row that they're going to lose in a regional round at home. But I mean, show up for your group, man. I mean, to me, it seemed like they had written off the result. And I know the percentages are not good, Corn, for teams that lose that 1-0 game on Saturday night to come back and win the regional. But it's not like it hasn't been done.
It does happen. We've seen it happen many times in Columbia and in Clemson over the years. It does make it tough, but I mean, if you don't have the pitching, it makes it almost impossible. And we saw that with Clemson yesterday in particular, where they just came up short. Again, I mean, the Clemson baseball program has had just so much success over all the decades, going back to the Bill Wilhelm era through Jack Leggett, now to Monty Lee. And Monty Lee is having big-time success in terms of winning games, and I think the recruiting seems to be going, well. They've recruited some really good players who didn't come to school. For example, the Meadows kid, who's now with the Pittsburgh Pirates, he was a Clemson signee. His brother is a Clemson signee. He's expected to be picked tonight in the first round, so I doubt he'll step on campus in all likelihood, but you never know. That kind of hurts your recruiting class when you lose those kind of players, yet you must live on as a college baseball coach. That being said, when you're home 3 years in a row and you can't advance to a super regional, that puts you in a very poor light with your supporters because they see what's happening up the road, just like with football. I mean, Gamecock football fans right now are having to deal with a Clemson football brigade that is owning South Carolina, and there's nothing else they have no comeback. The proof is in the pudding. Head to head, Clemson has won the series with USC in baseball the last 3 years, but 2 of the last 3 years, South Carolina has now made it to a super regional. They lost a super regional in 2016 at home, and we'll see what happens here when they go out to Arkansas. So South Carolina continues to have better success on the national scope, on the national landscape in baseball than Clemson does, and that is just the bottom line.
Yeah.
Why that's the case, you try to figure it out. You figure out baseball, and you let somebody know.
Well, here's the thing, and another thing, I don't want to get on the volunteer assistant coach, Greg Starbuck, who's out there at third base, but he's obviously under influence from Monty Lee. There were 2 bad sends by Starbuck in the series, and one of them basically was one that cost Clemson some pitching late. They had a chance to have Seth Beer come up with the bases loaded early on against Morehead State in the 7th inning, and instead, on a ball that basically caromed off the shortstop's glove and barely reached the outfield grass if it ever did, and they're sending a second runner home to try and take the lead, and he gets thrown out by 20 feet. I mean, come on. What are you doing? I mean, and I know that Monty Lee said after the game, he defended it by saying there's 2 outs and you have to take a chance and make the play. No, not with Seth Beer coming to the plate with the bases loaded. And I know Seth Beer was 2 for 16. But, I mean, come on. What are we talking about here? And then there's another one later on, ended up actually not mattering because Beer, I guess, flied out to end the inning. But, again, just to me, there's a lot situationally that I qualm with and I quarrel with when it comes to that. It just, to me, very inconsistent.
But, and you were there and refresh me on this, but, I mean, the game against Vanderbilt in the winner's bracket, it's a 1-run game.
Yeah.
You got the winning runs on base. You got one of the best hitters in college baseball at the plate. He doesn't do the job.
Right.
If he gets the base hit and Clemson wins that game, we're probably not having this conversation. We're probably talking about Clemson hosting a super regional. That's the fine line in baseball. Your best, you had as a coach, besides having the lead in that situation, if you weren't going to have the lead or you weren't going to be tied, you were in the best position you could be in. Players on base to win the game, your best hitter at the plate, and a chance to win it right there, or at least put your team ahead. I think Vandy was the home team. At least put your team ahead, and he didn't deliver, and that's just baseball.
800-956-7266. Let's go to Tiger Bryan, who's in Lexington. Tiger Bryan, what's happening?
Hey, man, what's going on? Lancaster, man. Hey,
Lancaster.
Oh, go ahead.
Every big-time college program, Clemson, Carolina, Alabama, you know who pays the bills? Football. It ain't baseball. It ain't basketball. Football makes the money.
Right.
All right, look. Let's talk about it.
Well, but here's the thing, Tiger Bryan. Is there something to be said for the support that comes to the other sports?
Well, hey, if you don't make the revenue for the football didn't bring in the money, but it pay and all, and Gamecocks, whatever they do, hey, they wouldn't have, they couldn't fill the sports they have. I mean,
I'm not asking about that. I'm asking about why, when they were full on Friday and Saturday nights, just after one loss to Vanderbilt, a 1-run loss, why on Sunday the place was like sitting in a synagogue.
I wasn't there. I don't know, but you know what?
You obviously have never been in a synagogue. Those synagogues can get pretty loud with all the chatter.
Well, they must of them must have went to church. You know, didn't come
Yeah,
to the game.
I'm saying it sounded more like New Spring out there instead of Doug Kingsmore.
But it's all good. I mean, I don't think South Carolina ain't got the depth to go against. They might make. If they get past Arkansas, they'll be lucky.
But they got past where y'all are.
Huh?
They got past where y'all are, though.
Yeah, but they won't get no. They won't never make it to Omaha.
How do you know? How do you know? How do you know? They won 5 consecutive SEC series. What's Clemson have to show for their 47 wins? They're sitting at home.
You're a Gamecock man. I see that already.
No, I'm not. I'm a realist, Tiger Bryan. This is embarrassing.
I will tell you what. This year football, when they come to Clemson, I hope you go up there and watch the game because it's going to be
I'll be there. I'll be there. Appreciate it.
It'd be a beat down.
I'm not a Gamecock fan, nor am I a Clemson fan. I'm sitting here and I'm telling you like it is. Clemson lost 2 games and had 9 home runs allowed to a team that, oh, by the way, South Carolina saw in their building, and guess what happened, Corn?
Beat them.
They beat them 2 out of 3. And yet that same team has come in 2 years in a row at Doug Kingsmore Stadium and wiped the floor with the team plaid in orange. There's been orange tears. I mean, come on. I'm just saying. The proof is in the pudding. What was the phrase? There's orange in the end zone? And guess what? There's orange in the exits as well. All I got to say. That's all I got to say.
Yeah, hard to argue. I mean, the facts are the facts. Clemson did not get it done, has not gotten it done 3 years in a row. Best thing for them next year, have a good team, have a good season, maybe go on a regional on the road. I know home support's big, but maybe getting away might take some pressure off.
We'll hear from the 2 coaches who don't have teams in this weekend or after this weekend, Monty Lee and Gary Gilmore next.
Goldsboro. How do I? To Goldsboro. I am starving. Trump rescinds invitation for Eagles.
Shorten Gilmore to 2 minutes. Can you hear me, Corn?
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll go to Monty first, and we shorten Gilmore to 2 minutes.
Yeah, Will can do those. Let me pull some cuts here. Pull my cuts real quick. See, why is that doing that?
We knew it was going to be a battle today. We knew it was going to be a battle, but wanted to try to get it done.
Yeah.
Now back to Sports Talk, South Carolina's most listened to sports talk show for more than 30 years.
Corn, I'm upset. Because the Cincinnati Reds basically stole the pick that I thought the Mets were going to get, and they took Jonathan India out of Florida with their pick, and the Mets took an outfielder from high school in Wisconsin that basically, to my mind, I know nothing about. I was so excited to get Jonathan India, and they didn't get Jonathan India. But this is how things happen for them. But anyway, we had a Twitter person come in and comment. He said, someone needs a refresher on how the stands in Founders Park looked a few years back when South Carolina played an early afternoon losers bracket game, #hypocrisy. Well, number one, I wasn't here. But number two, I would say if that happened, then they're just as wrong as Clemson is. In fact, I would say more so wrong because not for nothing, but bigger park, bigger support system, bigger importance around that program in South Carolina than Clemson right now. And if that was the case, then shame on them for not showing up.
Well, I'll say this.
I'll be an equal opportunity offender. I'll say it.
That's cool. I'll say this. Those loser bracket games on early Sunday afternoon when your team has to win twice, it's hard to draw a crowd when you're home. You're the home team, and it's just historically, whether it's South Carolina, Clemson, Coastal, you fall into the losers bracket, you have to play that early game on Sunday. Now, people will turn out big if you happen to win and get to that championship game, but that early game is usually a tough draw.
It wasn't as full Sunday night as it was the past two nights, and again, I think they deserve better support from that perspective. Here's a little bit from Monty Lee, who spoke after the 19-6 thrashing by Vanderbilt.
I'd like to congratulate Vanderbilt for a job well done. Played great all weekend. Certainly played a great game tonight. They swung the bats extremely well. Pitching wise, we just didn't have an answer for them. Strider struggled a little bit early in the game. We had to go to the bullpen again early. In 4 ball games, we really only got a significant start out of one guy. So it makes it awfully tough when you have to go to the pen. We had used a number of our guys out of the pen up until tonight's game. But once you get that momentum going, it's very difficult to stop it. And you got to give them credit. It's certainly not indicative of our season, though. And I think that's one thing that that needs to be said. This is a tough loss, and they don't get any tougher. Anytime you lose a game to end the year in your home regional, and to lose in the fashion that we did, to get beat the way we did, it's extremely tough. But that being said, our team won 47 games this year. That was the most of any Clemson team since 2006. That's 12 years. That's 12 years. So make sure that our guys get the credit that they deserve for a great year. It did not end the way that we wanted it to end. It was tough getting through that game tonight, getting hit the way that we got hit. But the guys in our dugout did some really good things this year. It's the team that plays the best. It's a team that plays the best that wins a regional. And, we've come up short the last 3 years. I've been fortunate enough to coach a team that's won a regional, and we were the team that played the best. I can't say we were the best team in the regional, but we were the team that played the best. And, this year was no exception to the last 2 years before that. We played good baseball. We played a good game, Morehead State. We were down. We came back. We found a way to win the ball game. Played a good game against Vanderbilt the first game. We just couldn't come up with a hit with runners on base. That's the bottom line. That was the difference in the ball game. Game 1 today was a tough one. We got down early, found a way to fight back and win that game, held on at the end. But I think, at the end there, we just didn't have enough arms. We didn't have enough guys that could give us quality innings. We needed to pitch well. Strider needed to go deep. That's the bottom line. You're not going to win a lot of baseball games if you're taking your starting pitcher out 3 out of the 4 games as early as we did. It's just tough to do because, you're having to pitch guys and stretch guys out who are used to throwing 1 to 2 innings. And you're asking guys to pitch on short rest, and it's just tough to do. But these guys are going to learn from it. They're going to grow from it, and they're going to get better from it. And a lot of the guys that pitch in tonight's game are going to be back, and that's going to leave a sour taste in their mouth. And it's something that they can grab onto and hold on to and be ready to go. But as far as our lack of winning our regionals here, the bottom line, we weren't the team that played the best, and Vanderbilt was. Vanderbilt deserves the credit. They were the better team. They were the better team. I don't know what else I could say about it. It's not like we prepared any differently. It's not like we tried to send any sort of different messages. The bottom line is tonight we just got beat, and we got beat handedly.
Monty Lee, what is the acceptable amount of outrage, Corn? It's somewhere between firing Jack Leggett for losing regionals like this and accepting it blindly, just as the fact that you get to the postseason. Where's the acceptable amount of outrage? Somewhere in the middle?
Well, I think in the case of Jack Leggett, again, you had a new athletic director come in. I think there were some mitigating circumstances involved there as well. And, to be quite honest with you, in my opinion, Jack Leggett should never have been fired by Dan Radakovich. Jack would have done exactly what Monty has done in his 3 years. Who knows? Maybe he would have won a home regional, maybe not. I don't think he should have ever been fired by Radakovich. I think that became more of a battle of two wills against each other. No pun intended there, Will. And so, I don't know. It's you have, if you're a Clemson fan, you're disappointed. Do you live and die with baseball? No. You'd like to be going to Omaha. You'd like to win a national championship, et cetera, et cetera. But it's really about football there and football in Columbia too. Now I think maybe because South Carolina has 2 national championships this decade in baseball, and their program now is heading back to a super regional for a 13th time. Maybe Gamecock fans live and die a little bit more with their baseball team. I don't know. I can't speak for either crowd, but I know at Clemson, it's still football that is premier. And in South Carolina, too, I mean, they want the football to be big time and win championships as well.
They do, but, I mean, here's the thing. You know, from what I can understand, you know, the way that the last two coaches got ran out at both places, it was because of a certain postseason success. And in my mind, I just look at this from the standpoint of if one guy gets fired for making a postseason, another guy who gets fired for just not even making it at all, I mean, that kind of tells you where the expectations are for both sides. But in my mind, Corn, it's hard for me to fathom how 3 years you get the basically the deck stacked in your favor in your home ballpark, and you lose to three teams that, again, two years in a row, you lose to a team that has very great baseball tradition in Vanderbilt. You lose to Oklahoma State the year before that, who was basically an upstart. I mean, I just, to me, I think they needed, and again, a lot of times in baseball, you're hampered by what happens in the draft. I understand that. So again, players that could have been here that weren't here because of the draft, I understand all that. But at the end of the day, the pitching is what humbles you in these weekends. And you just find out so very, very quickly how much pitching you need to go through the gauntlet that is the NCAA tournament.
Well, there ain't no doubt about it. You have to have the arms. And one thing about South Carolina right now, I mean, again, Cody Morris gave them a really good outing in game 2. Majinski was really good today. Hill was not he was okay. He just didn't go deep on Friday, so they pressed the bullpen there a little bit. But South Carolina has developed a very consistent and confident bullpen that they can turn to practically at any time in the ball game and feel like they're going to be okay.
Well, it was a fantastic weekend and week of regional coverage here on Sports Talk. Corn will be back here.
Can I say something real quick before we leave?
Sure.
The people at East Carolina are fantastic. I mean, I'm talking about from the media standpoint. I know listeners don't really care, but I'm going to say it, man. Their SID, all their assistants, just fantastic people, make you feel at home. And my new favorite school in the state of North Carolina, I'm declaring here publicly, is indeed ECU.
Told you you'd have fun up there. You didn't believe me.
Nice town.
It's a fantastic town. I was jealous you got to go there. We all reconvene together tomorrow. We'll have a game time and days set for you for the Gamecock Super Regional. We talk to you tomorrow. Sports Talk. See you.
All right, I am not hanging up on you yet.
Yeah. Let's see if we can avoid that this time. I am so hungry I could eat a pirate. Duke is hanging on against Georgia 6-4. Florida Atlantic's beating Florida. Tennessee Tech and Ole Miss are scoring.